Motown refused to release it. Gordy heard the finished recording and told Marvin Gaye it was too political, too jazzy, radio would never touch it. He refused to put it out. Marvin's response was the only card he had left. If Motown wouldn't release What's Going On, he would never record another song for them. Ever. When Gordy finally gave in, What's Going On became the fastest-selling single in Motown history. The song he called Unreleasable sold faster than anything his label had ever put out. Marvin Gaye's younger brother Frankie came home from Vietnam a different person. He didn't talk about what he'd seen. He didn't need to. Marvin could see it in his eyes. While America debated the war in living rooms and on television, Marvin watched his brother carry something no words could describe. He started writing. Every line of What's Going On was aimed at a country tearing itself apart, and at the young men coming home from a war nobody wanted to explain. By 1970, Marvin Gaye was one of Motown's biggest stars. He'd had hit after hit, smooth, polished love songs that Gordy's machine had shaped to perfection. But Marvin was restless. The music he was making felt thin against what was happening outside: Vietnam, assassinations, civil rights marches, cities on fire. He wanted to say something real, something that mattered. He just needed the right song to say it with. The song didn't start with Marvin. It started with Obie Benson, a member of the Four Tops, who witnessed police beating protesters at a rally in Berkeley, California in 1969. He was shaken. He wrote a melody and some lyrics, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. He brought it to the Four Tops first. They passed. Then he brought it to Marvin Gaye. Marvin took it, rewrote it from the inside out, poured his brother's story into it, and turned a protest melody into something much larger. When Marvin brought What's Going On into the studio, he recorded it in a way Motown had never heard before. He layered voices, including his own, recorded twice, over a jazz-influenced arrangement with congas, flutes, and strings. He sang it like a conversation, not a performance. Multiple voices talking over each other like real life. The engineers weren't sure what they were making. Marvin was certain. He knew exactly what this song needed to be. He brought the finished recording to Gordy. Gordy listened, and according to those who were in the room, he hated it. Too political, too experimental, nothing like the Motown sound that had made them both rich. He refused to release it. The master tape sat on a shelf while Marvin waited. Weeks passed, then months. Motown released other records. What's Going On collected dust. One of the label's biggest stars had made something his own label didn't want the world to hear. Marvin had one move left. He went to Gordy and delivered an ultimatum: release What's Going On, or he would walk away from Motown and never record another song for the label. For a man who had given them some of their biggest hits, this wasn't a small threat. Gordy didn't believe him at first, but Marvin didn't blink. The standoff held until Gordy finally gave in. Not because he believed in the song, but because losing Marvin Gaye was a price he wasn't willing to pay. What's Going On was released on January 20, 1971. Within days, it became the fastest-selling single in Motown history. Radio stations, the same ones Gordy said would never touch it, couldn't stop playing it. It hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B charts. Gordy called Marvin immediately. He told him to record an entire album. The song he had refused to release for months had just become the most important thing Motown had ever put out. The album What's Going On followed in May 1971. 9 songs, all flowing together without pause. A complete artistic statement unlike anything Motown had ever released. It addressed Vietnam, drug addiction, poverty, the environment, and the quiet grief of a generation promised a better world and given a war instead. Critics called it a masterpiece. Gordy, who had fought against every note of it, later called it the greatest album Motown ever made. Today, Rolling Stone ranks What's Going On as the greatest album ever made. Not greatest soul album. Not greatest R&B album. Greatest album, period. It influenced Prince, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and virtually every artist who came after. It proved that pop music could carry real grief and real rage without losing its beauty. And it almost didn't exist, because one man in an office decided radio would never play it. Marvin Gaye never stopped pushing against the limits of what music was allowed to say. But his personal life grew darker with every passing year. On April 1, 1984, the day before his 45th birthday, Marvin Gaye was shot and killed by his own father at the family home in Los Angeles. The man who had asked the world, "What's going on?" died in a moment of private violence that no song could have predicted or prevented. Marvin Gaye wrote What's Going On for his brother, for the protesters, for the soldiers, for a country that had forgotten how to listen. He fought his own label to get it heard, and when it finally came out, it changed everything. Some songs entertain, some songs comfort. What's Going On demanded something harder. It asked America to look at itself and answer an honest question. That's the untold story of What's Going On. Subscribe, there are more stories where this came from.